Hi, everybody. It's Drew Bird here speaking to you from Canada. I hope you're having an amazing time at the conference. I wish I could be there in person to enjoy the sessions and the breakouts and the conversations with you. Unfortunately, my travel schedule doesn't allow me to do that. I've been to Africa a couple of times. I've never been to the beautiful country of Ghana, and I would certainly love to do that one day. But I want to say big thank you to James and the Addison Center for Emotional Intelligence for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity to speak with you through this format today. Through my work, I get to speak about emotional intelligence. I get to sit with leaders from all walks of life and talk about the value of emotional intelligence, why it's important. We get to explore why for leaders it is such a critical skill. We talk about its role in creating healthy workplaces, healthy communities, and how it can help us become more effective with each other. A great deal of my work is focused on this idea of emotional effectiveness. So emotional effectiveness is using your emotional intelligence in such a way that you get the desired results that you're looking for. Now, people sometimes ask me, but surely doesn't that lead the way to people being manipulative? Doesn't that lead the way to people using their emotional intelligence in perhaps a less than healthy way? Well, the truth is that if your emotional intelligence is balanced, if it's balanced across the different areas, the subscales of emotional intelligence, if your intentions are good, then you can use your emotional intelligence for good, obviously. And if your intentions are bad, then yes, certainly there is an opportunity that you could use your emotional intelligence for less than positive impact. Obviously, I'm going to encourage you today to absolutely not do that, to use your emotional intelligence for good. Now, the thing about emotional intelligence for leaders is that leadership by its nature is a social activity. So leadership is about interacting with people effectively. It's around the idea that as leaders, we hold ourselves to a higher standard of behavior, and through that higher standard of behavior are able to provide a role model and an example to others so that they can demonstrate emotionally intelligent behavior as well. But we do need to be a little bit careful, because the idea that leadership exists in certain settings can be very limiting. So, for example, whether it's the church, whether it's your organization, whether it's your family, we cannot separate out the fact that emotional intelligence, emotionally effective leadership is absolutely critical in all of those settings. To be emotionally intelligent at work is one thing, but you also need to be emotionally intelligent at home, obviously. You don't leave your emotional intelligence at the door when you leave larger organizations. But of course, we've all heard stories, and we hear stories constantly about people behaving in non-emotionally intelligent ways inside work and outside of work as well. What I want to encourage you to think about is that emotional intelligence is truly a whole life concept. It truly encompasses every single aspect of your life. And with that in mind, what I'd like to do in this video is share with you 3 principles that I not only talk about in my work, but also 3 principles that I encourage people to use on a daily basis. These are things that I use on a daily basis to develop my own emotional intelligence. And so as part of this opportunity to speak with you at this conference, I wanted to share these messages with you. So here's the first one. Emotional intelligence affects every relationship you have, including the one with yourself, which is to be honest with you, probably the most important relationship you have. So I'll just say that again. Emotional intelligence affects every relationship you have, including the one with yourself. Now, the relationship you have with yourself, of course, is largely dependent on that voice inside your head. So the voice inside your head, the voice that starts talking to you pretty much the moment you wake up in the morning and doesn't stop talking at you until the moment you lay your head down to sleep. And even then, if you're like me, you'll spend many evenings, maybe nights, maybe spending some time awake listening to the voice inside your head. That voice is an incredibly powerful force in shaping our personal experiences. So let me ask you a question. If the voice inside your head was a real person, would you want to spend time with them? Now, I can tell you that certainly when I was younger, to some extent now as well, the voice inside my head was a negative force inside my life. It was critical. It was demeaning at times. I had to fight very hard over many, many years to not silence the voice, because you can never do that. That's the interesting thing. You can't silence the voice. It doesn't go away. But you need to train that voice to speak to you in positive terms. You need to re-educate that voice. You need to be able to stop the voice when it becomes negative. There are no easy ways to do this, unfortunately. It literally is down to, can you recognize that your thoughts are separate from who you are as a person? Can you see that these thoughts that you're having are shaping your life, shaping your emotional experience? If you can come to accept that, then you can begin to understand patterns in the way you communicate. You can begin to understand patterns in the way that you think. And once you've identified those patterns, then you can give yourself an opportunity to be more effective at understanding, what am I doing? What am I doing that's serving me? What am I doing that's perhaps hurting me? What should I be doing? What should I be thinking? So, for example, when the voice inside my head gets into a negative pattern, I have the ability now, which I've developed over a number of years, to be able to say, you know what? You need to stop. And I realize I'm talking to myself in a third person here, so it gets weird. But you need to stop that thinking. It's not constructive. It's not helping. And so I'll say something to myself like, how is this helping? How is this being constructive? Where are you going with this? To try and stop the train of thought in its tracks so that I can try and be more effective and more positive in the way I think. So that's the first thing I wanted to share with you. I'll say it again. Emotional intelligence affects every relationship you have in your life, particularly the one that you have with yourself. So the second thing I want to share with you is a quote that I created that sometimes gets people a little riled up. And I'll explain why it gets them a little riled up in a minute. But here's my point, or here is the quote. There isn't a single person in your life that doesn't want you to be more emotionally intelligent. Okay, I say that again. There is not a single person in your life who doesn't want you to be more emotionally intelligent. We all have things that we need to grow. We all have areas that we need to develop. We all have things about ourselves that we might think are good and productive and beneficial, but of course they impact other people in significant ways. Maybe that we're a little bit selfish, or maybe it's that we aren't as communicative as we want to be. Maybe it's that we take things for granted, or we don't take sufficient time to fully understand somebody else's perspective or their way of thinking. But I can tell you that there's always something that you can do to be more effective in a relationship. Now, I'm fortunate, if you'd like to look at it that way, in that my wife is a clinical psychologist. And so as she is an accredited scientist, she's got a doctorate in clinical psychology, she's very good at this stuff. She understands a great deal about human behavior and how people behave. I teach people about emotional intelligence through my work. And I'm convinced, though, that some days she will look at me and think, what on earth are you doing? Because even though I do this every day, even though emotional intelligence is a massive part of my life, I still make errors. I still do things wrong. I say things that I shouldn't have said. I don't say things that I should have said. And just basically I misread situations because I'm a human being. And there's no way to not make these mistakes and not make these errors. And so even though I do this for my work, I still have so much development I have so much to grow, so many things I could do differently. And so I guarantee that there are people in your lives, everyone you know would like you to be more emotionally intelligent in some way. Now, they may not have said anything to you about it. They may not even have the correct words or the language to encourage you to do it. But trust me when I say, and again, I'll just say it one more time, there isn't a single person in your life who doesn't want you to be more emotionally intelligent. So let me give you my third and my final thought. There is no end to developing your emotional intelligence. I get to meet thousands of people every year who are actively developing their emotional intelligence, who are actively working on being more emotionally effective. At no point have I ever met anybody who literally has nothing left to do with developing their emotional intelligence. Now, there's two parts to this. One is a good thing, and one you could look at and say, well, that's kind of not so good because, of course, as human beings, we love this idea of mastery. We love the idea of perfecting things. And so when I say to people, you're never done developing your emotional intelligence, of course, for some people, that's, oh, okay, well, I'd really like to get very, very good at it. And they may already be. There is no such thing as perfection. For me, I actually find it encouraging. I look at that and I think, I can do this for the rest of my life. I can look for ways to be more emotionally effective, to develop my emotional intelligence. This is my practice. This is my lifelong journey in developing my emotional intelligence and becoming more emotionally effective. It's interesting. Somebody said to me once, so you've never met anybody that says that they have perfected or that they have reached the highest level of emotional intelligence possible. And what was interesting about that was that I said to them, no, I've never met that person, but here's the thing. People who are very emotionally intelligent don't go around telling people that they're very emotionally intelligent because they would realize that that in itself is not an emotionally intelligent act. We all have work to do. Be wary of people that claim that they have mastered emotional intelligence. There's no such thing. And even if you had reached such a level, you wouldn't know it. There's nobody going around telling people, you've reached this, ideal, absolutely incredibly high level of emotional intelligence. So just to restate that last point again, there is no end to developing your emotional intelligence. And the last thing I want to say about that is emotional intelligence is a very fluid thing. I know that I have days, normally when I'm well rested, not stressed, not experiencing significant workloads, that I feel more emotionally intelligent than on the days when, I've got all these things happening and I'm my focus is pulled in many different directions. And perhaps I didn't sleep too well last night. Or maybe I've been traveling a great deal. Traveling can tire somebody out. So all of those things affect, our day-to-day emotional intelligence. So be wary of anybody that claims they have mastery because they don't. We're all in this and it's all a learning journey. So with that, I'd like to leave you with a couple of words, which is to learn as much as you can about emotional intelligence. It is one of the most critical skills I have ever seen in building healthy relationships for yourself inside your own head, building healthy relationships with other people, building healthy relationships within your organization, building healthy relationships within your church or your social groups. And of course, that will transfer into building healthy relationships in your community. Because what is a community if it is not a set of healthy, meaningful, mutually beneficial relationships? So with that, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you again, James, for inviting me to make this video for you. Thanks to all of you participating, for spending this little bit of time with me. And maybe if we ask James very, very nicely, maybe next year or the year after, I can come and see you in person. I would very much like that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the learning, and keep in mind, this is a lifelong journey to developing emotional intelligence. Have a good day.